While the president's reelection bid is officially getting underway, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's been even busier campaigning for the 2024 Republican nomination. There's a new report out in the Washington Post. It's shedding light on the in-depth training DeSantis supporters and allies need to go through, including what to say to Trump supporters, how to use body language, even making sure that they mention the governor's military experience and his wife's cancer fight when they are talking to potential voters. Those talking points provided by Never Back Down, which is a super PAC supporting the governor. And Niall Stanage from the Hill is joining me right now from D.C. Niall, I don't know. This doesn't seem rare to me. This doesn't seem like sacred ground. I mean, is this revolutionary that they're doing this, or is this just a pullback and a look behind the curtain of something that's been done forever?
It's not revolutionary, save for one respect, Adrienne, which is the amount of money they're putting into this. Normally, campaigns use volunteers for these door-knocking efforts. The people who are really passionate about the candidate, they want to go out in their own neighbourhood or some other neighbourhood, try to persuade people that their woman or man is the best candidate. This is different in that these people are going to be paid by the DeSantis super PAC, apparently between $20 to $22 an hour, and that is a key difference. Now, does that make it more professional, or do you end up with people who are doing it more for financial reasons and don't have that passion driving them forward?
There are currently 14 candidates for the nomination, 11 Republicans. Good gravy. They can barely fit on the screen. Then 3 Democrats, but really there's really only 3. I mean, when you think about it, when you think about the percentage of voter approval, former President Trump, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, and then, of course, President Biden. What is it going to take? Why do you think that there have been no other contenders who have really touched the heart of American voters in a way that could replace a Biden-Trump ticket?
Well, I will answer that in a second, but I'm just quite thrilled that you used the word good gravy finally in a segment with me. It's one of my favourite Adrianisms, and that's a high bar. Now, why have people not touched the hearts of the American people? Partly because I think we are so divided, and it is difficult then to have a candidate who unifies people, who people really coalesce around. And also, you know, a lot of these leading candidates have been around for a very, very long time. President Biden has been a politician all my lifetime. Former President Trump was a very different candidate, of course, but still, you know, a very well-known figure in American life. Typically, it's candidates who have that kind of sheen of newness that really draws people to them in that more excited way.
Maybe they just need some gravy on it. And if they talked about some gravy, it'd be all right. Maybe they'd actually get some attention. As
long as it's good gravy, then we'll be fine.
Good gravy. You know, former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's been in the news a little bit the past couple of weeks for different reasons. But now he's saying he would win the 2024 nomination if he were eligible, calling it a, quote, no-brainer. So how would the Terminator do against President Biden or any of the Republican frontrunners? This is some big, it's just interesting that he's saying anything right now.
It is interesting. And, you know, I think that one of the key points here is he's not ever going to be called in this boast that he can do it because he's not eligible, having been born in Austria. But there is clearly an appetite for a different kind of candidate. You might remember, Adrienne, NewsNation Decision Desk HQ did a poll just a few weeks ago, and I think it was 49% of people were at least open to voting for a third-party candidate. Now, as far as the Terminator's concerned, on one hand, he had been seen as kind of a joke candidate when he first ran as governor for California, and he won and then won again, as you will no doubt remember. But then, you know, he did leave office with very low approval ratings. So he has a mixed record politically.
Well, I mean, and again, maybe he shouldn't be talking because if it weren't for him, we might not have seen a Donald Trump run for office. I mean, he really did. He was the front runner to the, you know, outsider, the celebrity politician.
Absolutely. He blazed a trail in that respect. He was one of the first people to really knock down that door because he was a different candidate than, say, President Reagan, who had been an actor but wasn't really running as a celebrity candidate. Right. Arnold Schwarzenegger back then was a celebrity candidate.
Yeah. All right, Niall Stanage. Good to have you here as always. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.